Minister of Basic Education, that's Angie Motshekga, is expected to brief Parliament this morning in a virtual joint briefing. The department is preparing to continue its phased approach to the reopening of schools from the 6th of next month, despite the coronavirus pandemic. The department have received harsh criticism from teacher unions and parents who've raised concerns about the growing number of positive COVID-19 cases in schools across the country. For more on this now, we're joined by Newzroom Afrika's Athi Mtongana, who joins us live from just outside Parliament ahead of that engagement. Athi, good morning to you. Great to have you on. So, this has been an issue that's been protracted for a very long time, but there are growing calls that we're going to have to start some way finding out how to continue with our daily lives during the COVID-19 pandemic. I imagine it's among these issues that the Minister will try to speak on today.
In fact, Ayanda, the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, has been quoted to say that the prolonged stay of pupils at home, particularly in impoverished areas, in previously disadvantaged areas, will pose a threat of them not returning completely to school. We know there's a huge rate of dropouts, not only at tertiary institutions, but also from this level where the minister is trying to address these issues related to COVID-19 at the basic education department level. So schools across the country will have to adopt new ways of doing things. And already, like you've rightfully put it, Ayanda, the department has received harsh criticism from teachers' unions and parents who are very concerned about the growing number of COVID-19 cases countrywide. Now, Ayanda, we're talking about over 1,000 staff members from the Department of Basic Education at schools who have tested positive for COVID-19, and this also obviously affects the pupils themselves. We're talking about over 700 pupils countrywide which have also tested positive for COVID-19. But I must say that the department has once again been quoted to say that most of these infections at schools did not result as a result of them contracting the virus directly at school. They've been saying that most of the teachers and the pupils that have tested positive have actually contracted the virus outside school. But that's very debatable. A lot of unions have been protesting in the Western Cape. Ayanda, I can tell you, I don't think there's a week in this province alone where you don't have COSAS, for instance, representing teachers and pupils at schools across the country. There's not a week where they don't come out to protest and calling for the shutting down of schools, of course, raising real concerns about the over 700 schools in the country that have now come out to report cases of COVID-19 since the reopening of schools, Ayanda, earlier on for grades 7 and grade 12.
Yeah, that's right. And we also heard that the Western Cape has the second highest number of those pupils who've been affected by the coronavirus pandemic. But we've also seen unions raise real concerns, Athi, around teachers with comorbidities, right, and the risks that they face. Has the department in any way spoken to that issue specifically? And if not, are we expecting them to finally address it head on?
We believe those engagements are ongoing. Ayanda, the MEC for Education in the Western Cape, Davy Schaefer, has come out on record to say, and she was actually commenting on the latest death of a 54-year-old teacher who succumbed after contracting COVID-19. And again, unions were saying, I mean, if teachers are dying, it speaks to the concerns that have been raised by parents. We're seeing petitions that are being signed. There's currently another one on Facebook, which is garnering a lot of attention and attraction from teachers. It's already got about 50,000 teachers and concerned parents signing up to say they don't want schools to open. We know now, next month in July, grades are 1, 2, 3, 6, 10 and 11 will be heading back to school. Now we're talking about close to 6 million pupils, that are expected to return to school in what the Department of Education calls a phased reopening approach. And that is exactly what the portfolio committees here in Parliament in a joint virtual meeting will be asking the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, which we're hoping will be able to address that joint meeting when it starts at 9 o'clock this morning, Ayanda.
Yeah, a big part of the defense, before we let you go, Athi, from government in some aspects is that children are not as prone to being adversely affected by COVID-19. But of course, that misses the point that for children to go back to school, they expose themselves to the virus and expose other people who might actually be at risk. Speak to us about whether the department has, in some respects, been able to address, that sort of bigger picture that many unions, as you rightly put it, are trying to highlight.
The Basic Education Department, Ayanda, like I said, has received a lot of criticism. They will be asked those very same questions which have been raised by unions and teachers. MPs will, of course, get that opportunity to ask the questions themselves. And I think teachers who really want to find out what will happen with regards to this phased approach of reopening of schools and what schools will be doing to ensure social distancing. We know that children, Ayanda, are not adversely affected by COVID-19. However, they do test positive. And if you look at the statistics that have been constantly released by the Minister of Health, Dr. Mtongana, you would see there that there are deaths of children as young as 10. We've seen that in the statistics. So to say that children are not affected is but one debatable issue when the statistics are showing us that kids do get affected by COVID-19. And we have seen deaths as young as 10, and even at the teen years, we've seen deaths being recorded in South Africa as a result of COVID-19. And again, what you're mentioning, that they might contract the virus from school, or be it a community infection, and then pass it on to their elders. We know a lot of children are raised by the elderly who have comorbidities. I mean, already the staff members that have returned to school since the reopening of grades 7 and 12, the teachers at some schools have been complaining about the lack of other teachers returning to school, because we know that the Department of Education has urged that those specific teachers who have comorbidities and are above the age of 60 and 50, for example, they've asked them not to return at school. And teachers who have returned to school so far are already feeling the pressure of the others not returning as a result of them obviously being at much higher risk than many other staff members at school. So it will be very interesting what the department tells MPs who will be grilling the minister, as well as, of course, whoever she decides to bring from the Department of Basic Education to answer on this phased approach of reopening of schools come next month, 6 July.
Absolutely. Well, they still have a whole host of uncertainties to clarify. Thank you very much, Athi Mtongana. We're glad you're on that story for us. I have no doubt that you'll be able to break down those developments for us, as well as you always do. Athi Mtongana, live to us there from just outside Parliament.